Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us from India and wherever else you may be. We are excited today to have David Watkins from Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis, on the call with us and presenting for us today. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Evelyn, and good morning,
Yeah,
everyone. I'm excited to be here.
thank you. And just quickly, as you all know, we are Gen Next Education and the International Knowledge Center. Gen Next is based in the US out of St. Paul, Minnesota. And then the International Knowledge Center is in Bangalore, where we assist students with the application process to any university in the US. But as you can see here on my screen, these are partner institutions, and we know more about these institutions and recommend that you take a look at them. We also have found, and the reason we exist is that there's simultaneously too much information out there and not enough. And what it comes down to is that there isn't good access to good information. And what we believe is that good access to information means connecting you back to the source. It means connecting you back to the universities who can answer your questions. And so without further ado, David, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, and I will give you presenter status so that you can share your presentation with us.
Thank you very much, Evelyn. And we'll get this situated so everyone can see my screen. Hopefully that is now coming through for everyone.
It is.
Perfect. And let me just make sure I have this correct. So as Evelyn mentioned, my name is David Watkins. I am an assistant director at IUPUI in the International Admissions Office. I oversee a lot of our functions related to where we go to talk to students, what we say when we do talk to students, and ultimately assisting with the process of admission, scholarships, arrival, all of that, all that goes into coming and studying in the U.S. And today we're going to kind of cover some topics related to after admission. For our purposes, you know, this is a bit IUPUI centric. After you've been admitted to a university, the process will be rather specific to that university. There are going to be some overarching themes that I want to cover, a few big ticket items that once you're admitted, you know, you have to make sure that you cover, that you have everything ready to go. But in the process of talking about those things, I'm going to kind of show you how that process works at IUPUI, both from the student point of view and also from kind of the staff point of view, so that when you do receive an admission offer, you are more than ready to make a decision and ultimately, you know, arrive in the best position possible to be successful. So, as I mentioned, my name is David Watkins, Assistant Director at IUPUI. And IUPUI, for those who don't know, IUPUI is just how we shorten our very long name. It's Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis. We are a combination of both of those great universities located in the city of Indianapolis. It's a big school. We have over 30,000 students, about 2,000 of which are international students from about 150 different countries. We're well known for our research and undergraduate studies. We've been ranked in terms of the best undergraduate teaching in the United States. In terms of academic fields, we're known for engineering through the Purdue School of Engineering. We're known for our sciences and health sciences. But being a large comprehensive university, students can study almost everything under the sun in terms of whether they want to study ceramics, interior design, automobile engineering, nursing. They have a lot of option at a university like IUPUI. And as I mentioned, we are a university that grants two different kinds of degrees. Students in certain schools like engineering and science receive a Purdue degree, and other students, such as those who are in the Kelley School of Business, will receive an IU, an Indiana University degree. So that's a little bit about IUPUI. In terms of these things that I'm kind of talking about, yes, it serves as an introduction to our university. Since I'm going to be, talking to you about this process, but it's also something that you'll likely be going through yourself when you try to decide where you want to go for, an education in the U.S. If you apply to 8 different universities, I'm sure, given how strong academically most of the students I've met in my time in India are, that you will get admitted to all 8 universities. You're going to have to start looking at things like where is the university located? We're located in Indianapolis. What is the weather like in the city that the university is located in? In Indianapolis, weather goes through all 4 seasons. Right now it's winter, there's snow on the ground, and it's very cold outside. In 6 months it'll be summer, and it'll be sunny and hot. So these kind of things, how many students do they have? Do you want to go to a large university with 30,000 students, or do you want to go to a small university with 1,000 students? Does the university have the programs that you are interested in getting into? All of these things go into the decision-making process after you've been admitted. If you've been admitted and you know that's where you want to go, I want to go to IU, or I want to go to Purdue, or I want to go to Harvard, or I want to go to, wherever it is, and you've been admitted there, then your decision-making is easy. But most students are able to apply to several different colleges, get into several different colleges, and then it becomes a matter of whittling down where it is you want to go. And a big part of that is where it's located. Our campus, as I said, is located in Indianapolis. We're very close to downtown, so for students who are looking for a large university located in an urban environment, we kind of fit that bill. We're a large university, we're located in an urban environment. There are large universities in the United States that are located in small town environments. It's a very small town, but the university is almost the entire town or city. And so it's a different environment, and it's something that students have to take into account when they're trying to decide where they want to go. Large cities can offer many benefits when you're trying to decide after you've been admitted what university is best for you. Keep in mind things like, where can I get internships? Where is there business and industry that can provide me opportunities for research in my department? Where are there places for optional practical training or CPT after graduation? Where are the opportunities best for you? Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. You're the one who's going to spend 4 years in a given location. If you don't want to be located in a city, don't go to a university in a big city. So keep that in mind. My own experience, that had a big impact on what I wanted to do. I originally come from a small town in a rural area of Ohio, which is a state very close to Indiana, and decided that I wanted to go off to the big city for university. So I went to the University of Cincinnati, which is located in a larger city than I was used to in Cincinnati. But that was the environment I wanted. I wanted that environment as compared to the rural growing up that I had experienced. So now on to a little bit more of the process-oriented side of things. Once you're admitted, what do? Obviously, you have a lot that you have to decide if you've been admitted to multiple universities, which is kind of what we've talked about. You want to profile the university and decide where you want to go. But there are a lot of things that the universities are going to be asking you to do. If you've been admitted to 8 universities, then 8 universities are going to be sending you emails and communication and maybe even calling you and mailing you all about what you need to do. But the very first thing that you should be focused on is visas and then travel. So, you know, the visa process for the United States is not the easiest process in the world. It is easier for some people than others, but it's something that you want to make sure that you're not trying to do a month or two before you arrive. It's something that you want to do as early as possible, and there are guidelines as to how soon you can get in to, you know, schedule a visa appointment. But it's something that you can't let slip by. It seems every semester we have some students who are in kind of dire straits because they haven't been in to get their visa, or the first time they went in to get their visa, more information was needed, or it got denied at first, and they're trying to get it reconsidered. And these things all take time. Now, they're not the quickest things in the world. So it's something that once you're able to schedule an appointment and you've decided where you want to go, you want to go ahead and do. Similarly, you want to go ahead and kind of look at travel options as well. You know, and that's mainly from a cost point of view. It's probably something that the university is going to be asking you for. They're probably going to want to know when you're arriving. You know, we don't want you scheduling plane tickets if you're not going to get a visa. But definitely, if you already have the visa, schedule the travel, and if even before that, you want to be looking and possibly scheduling your travel so that you're not left in a situation that puts you arriving late or is extremely expensive for you and your family. The other thing I wanted to touch on is it's, at least for IUPUI, it's actually part of the admission process, but that's kind of financial planning. At IUPUI, you will receive your I-20 after you've been admitted, but before you can get that admissions decision, you do have to show proof of financials. Now, those proof of financials are heavily impacted by whether or not you receive scholarship. A good example is that IUPUI, one of our scholarships is about $20,000. Tuition here is $30,000. Then obviously there's housing as well. So rather than the I-20 showing the full amount of tuition at IUPUI, it will show the tuition amount minus the scholarship that you receive, and that would be the amount of money that you have to show to become admitted at IUPUI. Some universities may do that slightly different, but we are in the practice of mailing I-20s to all of our admitted students. The other thing I just wanted to highlight here is that when you're trying to decide where you want to go and eventually how many classes you want to take and what classes those are, you want to kind of take a look at how the university charges tuition. IUPUI is in a little bit of a unique situation in that we charge a flat rate, essentially, if you take credits between 12 and 18 credit hours. Most universities, and speaking from my own undergraduate experience here, charge tuition by the credit hour. So, you know, if tuition is $100 a credit hour, which would be a very, very, very cheap option, and you took 10 credits, it would be $1,000. So keep that in mind when you're trying to A, plan your courses, and B, figure out how much that you have to pay. At IUPUI, whether you take 12 credit hours or whether you take 18, you're going to pay the same amount. And that's important because, you know, you have to figure out how many credit hours are needed to graduate. At IUPUI, it's 120 credit hours. At other universities, it may be different depending on whether they're on semesters or quarters or whether they have different kind of academic plans. But obviously, when we say this is the amount of tuition per year, it's based on an understanding that you're taking a certain number of courses for a certain amount of time to get a certain degree. If that changes, if one semester you take 12 credit hours or 18, that will change the amount of time that you're in the program as well as when those costs occur. And the other thing you want to make sure is that you want to know how you can pay, whether it's by check or by transfer if your parents are paying. That'll be a big thing in terms of each semester knowing when billing is due and how to go about paying for that billing. So on to more exciting things. One of the big things that you have to do after admission is decide where you want to live. And that's kind of a hard decision for a lot of our international students because you're not in Indianapolis or wherever it is that you're looking to go to undergraduate school in the U.S. It's not necessarily feasible for you to travel to the United States and check out all the different housing options we have. But most universities, as you'll see here, have information on their website. So this is information about IUPUI's undergraduate housing here. This information is on our website. We allow students to take little virtual tours of our campus. You can check out what rooms look like. You can see what the prices are. You know, so I'm not spending a huge amount of time on these, just to say that every university will have different housing options. One thing that I do want to highlight, at least at IUPUI, we have what's called our International House, and it is a place where international students and local students here in the U.S. Apply to get into this housing. It's a prestigious deal to get into this housing, and it's a special community that organizes special events to promote both cross-cultural, intercultural community understanding. The students who live in the iHouse tend to make very strong friendships for the rest of their life, and a lot of universities have places like this. They're more than happy to put, you know, international students in certain housing. Maybe if you're a freshman, you have to live in certain housing. But a lot of universities have a housing location that is specifically for international students and domestic students to get together and promote a cross-cultural awareness and friendship on campus. And at IUPUI, that's the International House. So we like going to those events. We like visiting those students, and it's a great place to be. But the thing you really have to watch out for, if housing is something you need on campus, you have to look out for what the deadline is for guaranteed housing. Pretty much every university is going to have one of these. You're going to have to pay attention to that. Oftentimes it's in March and April. So if you think that you're going to come to IUPUI, you think you're going to come to another school like, you know, St. Cloud State University or St. Thomas in Minnesota, if you think you're going to go to one of those schools, you have to make sure that you're making your decision early enough to get housing. It's not impossible to get housing in any of these locations. Certainly in Indianapolis, if you miss our application deadline for housing, we have people ready to help you find housing in an apartment near campus. But the best option for most first-year students is to make sure that by March or April, and you want to check that specific deadline, regardless of, you know, where you're going, they're going to have some deadline. You need to have decided whether or not you're coming to, you know, IUPUI or the University of Cincinnati, and go online and make sure that you apply for housing. We don't want people missing out on housing. It's not a good feeling when you arrive from overseas and you don't know where you're going to live. So we always remind students in a lot of emails, make sure that they apply for housing. So the other thing I want to highlight here in terms of, and what I'm showing here is actually our online portal that we operate at IUPUI. Every university is going to have something similar to this. The one we have here, it just helps students go through the process. You can see that there are different checklists. The previous slide showed the pre-arrival step 1. This slide is showing pre-arrival step 2. And these items are simply things to do. Some of them require you to send us something, so like um, vaccination verification, for example. Others require you to go somewhere and do something, like join our Facebook group, or this particular student here that we've screenshotted hasn't done their airport transportation form. So they haven't told us when they're arriving, what flight they're arriving on, what time it lands, that kind of thing, so that we can arrange airport transportation to campus. Every university is going to have something like this. Um, they're going to have forms for you to fill out, things for you to go through, so that you are ready to get started when you arrive on campus, rather than trying to hand in a whole bunch of forms or fill out a whole bunch of forms that you could have done before you arrived. And the reason I say this because it's not uncommon for people to get admitted, do one or two things, and then show up on campus. And then we have to go through a lot of extra forms and explanation, and maybe they have to take, for example, this math placement exam when they arrive, and all that could have been done ahead of time. So at IUPUI, we ask students to sign up for things ahead of time, complete the forms ahead of time, so that when you arrive on campus, you're ready to move in, meet new friends, and get started with classes. And in that regard, one of the best parts about arriving in a new country, at least at IUPUI, is we kind of roll out the red carpet. Our international students are they're our honored guests, and when you first arrive on campus, our whole staff goes out for orientation. We help you sign up. We help you make sure that all of your records and forms are in order. We get you hooked up with orientation with domestic students. We introduce you to current international students. We introduce you to mentors. We have a big services fair where we bring in banks and grocery stores and all sorts of different housing places, services that you might need while you spend 4 years in Indianapolis. And we bring them all to one location. We bring them to you, and we say, here's some of the things that you're going to need. These people would like to help you out during your time in Indianapolis, and it's generally a pretty good time, and a lot of the student organizations will show up. We on campus, we have anything from a motorsports club to a Indian student society to academic clubs, water skiing club. And, so these student clubs will show up, and they'll want you to join their club, and it's generally a pretty good time. So I urge everyone to register for everything. Most universities will have some kind of mentoring program. At IUPUI, we have an international peer mentoring program where we pair our incoming international students with current international and domestic students at IUPUI to be kind of a mentor and to really help out in terms of getting acclimated to the United States. Where do you go to go dancing? Where do you go to get food? Where do you go to hang out or to rent a movie or whatever it is? Your peer mentor is there to help you. So it's one of those things that we always encourage students to sign up for. It can't hurt you. Another thing we commonly encourage students to sign up for, and a lot of universities will want you to sign up for these things, but you certainly don't have to, is our Freshman Bridge program. And it's a nice little 2-week program that helps students transition from high school to university life. There are some academic components to it in terms of there's a professor that teaches the program, but the ability to get on campus early, to meet some of your peers, meet some domestic students, learn about the university system in the United States, and in this case specifically at IUPUI, that's invaluable. Typically for us, this starts 2 weeks before classes, and the ability to get that head start, to have already been on campus for 2 weeks by the time classes start, is really, really great. It's a lot better than arriving, say, the day before classes start. And again, in terms of the same line of register, 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 sign up. Sign up for the events, sign up for the welcome activities, sign up for the dinners, the information sessions. Every university is going to have these things. Sign up for the services, go to the events, meet the staff. If you make your way to IUPUI, I love to meet students that we've met overseas, that we've talked to online. It's always rewarding to see a fresh-faced student show up on campus ready to go. So meet with the staff, go to the events, learn about your fellow international students and where they've come from, what has brought them to IUPUI, and you will end up being successful in the United States. We want you to have a strong community when you arrive. You're not a loner. You're coming. We're there to support you, and that is largely what the after admissions process includes. Once you arrive on campus, that's when you kind of start looking into things like on-campus employment, paid internships, research, OPT. That's when that kind of stuff starts to happen. Once you've arrived on campus, you've registered for your courses and you're ready to go. So I am more than happy to answer any questions that have come through, and I think there are a few.
Thank you so much, David, for covering those topics for us. We do have some questions coming up, and so I'll go ahead and read those off and have you answer them. We also have Yashika here on the phone with us, and I've asked her to talk a little bit about maybe some of the visa questions as well. And of course, you are certainly welcome to answer those. Can we go back to housing?
Absolutely.
And talk about that for a minute. We got a question coming through on WhatsApp. How do I know who I will be living with? Will it be in a shared room? Can I live with someone I know? Could you address that question?
Yeah. So typically, yes, you will know who you are living with. Often it is in a shared room, and typically, yes, you can request. I say all of those things with qualifiers like typically and often and you should know, because not every university is the same. However, oftentimes, for example, the rooms here in University Tower, those are shared rooms. They're rather large because this used to be a hotel, and they each have their own bathroom in the room. You will be living with someone else, at least one other person there. Oftentimes, you will have the ability to request who you want to live with. It's not guaranteed that you'll get that placement, but it's something that you're able to request. Obviously, if you really want to live with that person and maybe you don't get placed with them your freshman year, most common thing for students to do is to go out and get an apartment together after that, or request to live together in on-campus housing after that. And typically you will find out shortly before you arrive who your roommate is going to be. Sometimes you may not know till you arrive, and that's fine. Thinking of my own undergraduate experience, I didn't request to live with anyone before I arrived on campus. I was actually in a quad that involved 3 other people, 2 people in each bedroom, and I received their names and contact information a few weeks before arrival so that we could figure out who was bringing the TV and who was bringing the soda and who was bringing the snacks and who was bringing whatever else that we needed to furnish our dorm room.
Those are important things. Speaking of bringing things, actually, we got a question on WhatsApp. What kinds of documents do I need to bring with me to college?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, obviously you want to have all of your official identification documents, and it's always good to have 2. So say if you have a passport and a state ID, like a driver's license or even a student ID from your home country. In terms of academic documents, it typically at some point you're going to have to produce your most recent transcript and hand that in, or an official version of your transcript. So, for example, a big part of our orientation on the first or second day that you arrive is finding out whether you have to submit additional academic documents, which would be your most up-to-date official transcript. Some students do that before they arrive. I would certainly encourage you to, so you don't have to wait in line. But those would be two big documents. Obviously, having your visa before you enter the country is a great idea. But those would be two big ones that I would highlight in terms of what kind of official documents you need to bring with you.
Okay, for the university side. Great. And then we also have, as I mentioned, Yashika here on the line, and I'm going to ask her to talk for a minute about some visa questions and concerns. Again, if you have questions, please feel free to either type them in the questions or chat feature. And then I also wanted to mention, I'm going to type David's. You already put this up, but David, I'm going to go ahead and put your email address in and let's see, I want to make sure that I'm actually, oh, you've just pulled it up, and people can copy it out of there or out of the chat feature if you'd like, or write it down from the screen that David is displaying. So David, I'm going to go ahead and put you on the spot and say that you're available for any questions that students may have. And then
Absolutely.
am I correct in understanding that if for some reason someone on the call has not applied to IUPUI, but now from hearing your talk is interested in exploring that, is it still possible to apply for admission for the fall or August term of 2017?
Yes and yes. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me. If I can't answer your question, I have several students that work in our office who are international students themselves, including an Indian student, and her experience is always great when she's able to talk to students. And yes, we are still accepting applications for IUPUI. We will be until March, and that is with scholarship consideration. So it's certainly not too late to apply for the fall.
Wonderful. Switching gears quickly, Yashika, before I ask you to talk about the visa piece of it, I just wanted to mention for everyone that we will be having a couple more webinars. We are looking at some of the scheduling for the next one, but I also wanted to mention that we have universities who are traveling with us and coming and visiting the U.S., coming from the U.S. to India here in a couple of weeks. And so you can get some of those questions answered as well. For more information about that, you would want to go to our website, myikc.com/dreams, for more information. And then if you have questions for our staff, you can also, I'm typing them in the myikc.com/dreams. And then you can also ask our staff questions at info@myikc.com. Again, our advising, as many of you already know, is free to students and families. And Yashika is one of our advisors in the International Knowledge Center. Yashika, thank you for being on the call as well. And could I just ask you to take a few minutes to talk about some of the visa questions that you've had from students that maybe you want to highlight some of the issues that they need to be considering?
Sure. Good to be here with you guys. One of the things that David actually mentioned earlier about housing and making sure that you're keeping track of housing deadlines, because some of these housing deadlines may be, before your May 1st deadline. You want to be aware of that. I would go ahead and say that you really want to be conscious for visa purposes as well of making your decision of where to enroll as soon as possible. I know I've run into situations with families that have waited quite long to make their decision. You know, maybe they have 2 or 3 acceptances that have come in, and in, you know, trying to decide where they want to go, they've waited a little bit long. Maybe they've missed that May 1st deadline, which is, you know, not advisable at all. But also keeping in mind that the earlier you decide and put in your deposit for enrollment, the sooner the university can start their I-20 process, the sooner, well, in this case, there are universities like IUPUI, as David mentioned, that will give you your I-20 as soon as you have your admissions decision. But there are also universities that will wait until you formally give your enrollment deposit, and then they will start the I-20 process and send you your I-20. And as most of you know, you cannot make your visa appointment without that I-20. So these are things that can end up sort of delaying the process for getting a visa and eventually getting, you know, getting yourself to the United States to start your study there.
And
One of the things.
Jessica,
Go ahead.
uh,
Yep.
what does a student need to take to their visa appointment once they have it?
Sure. So there's different advice when it comes to this. One of the things that you do want to be aware of is, well, you need to take your I-20. You need to take the forms that are listed on your visa appointment for the student visa. You also want to carry with you any financial documents that you've submitted to the university in order to obtain the I-20. And you really want to come prepared with answers, not so much documentation, but with answers about, you know, why you've chosen to attend this university, what universities you've applied to. You know, the visa personnel, the staff at the embassies are going to want to know that you are an authentic applicant. You are genuinely, you know, a student who wants to go to the U.S. and study and gain that experience. Unfortunately, they have to vet, you know, students out, because there might be other people who are not going to the U.S. with a student visa for the right purposes. So you know, unfortunately have to be aware that these are questions that you're going to be asked, and you should be able to answer them. You should be able to, you know, speak about your interest in studying in the U.S., why you want to do it, what sort of process you've gone through, why you've applied to the universities you've applied to, why you've chosen the university that you are currently planning to attend, and so on. So definitely the paperwork is, you know, one thing, but also you yourself being prepared to answer those questions. So that's why it's so important for you to be involved in the application process from step one.
Thank you, Yashika. David, another question would be, and you touched on this a little bit, but can you talk a little bit more about what happens to a student like the days and weeks after arrival? Because I think that that's one of the hardest things to communicate in terms of what clearly is going to happen, and it's hard to really understand what's going to happen until you're there on the ground. But how would you describe that process? You talked a little bit about freshman bridge, but can you talk a little bit more about orientation?
Yeah, so basically in those first couple days and even weeks, we try to make sure that you're as busy as possible. We schedule a lot of information sessions, meet and greets. We often even have a session for your parents and family to meet with staff and to ask questions. You'll go to different kind of, I wouldn't call them lectures, but you're going to have to sit and consume a lot of information to help you go through welcome activities. Some of them will be fun. You'll be doing different activities with domestic students or international students. And then other parts of it will be more business related. So if you have to take a math placement test, for example, that'll get scheduled during the first few days that you're on campus. You need to register, if you still need to register for courses, you know, helping you register for courses. One of the very first things I know the international peer mentors do with our new incoming students is kind of give them an introduction to Indianapolis. Most universities are going to do something to introduce you to the city or the town where you're going to be living for several years. Sometimes we do a scavenger hunt around campus to help you get acquainted with the campus and the city. There may be an outing to downtown Indianapolis, or a group trip to the grocery store. Whatever it is, to make sure that you are comfortable in this new location, and you have the resources to be comfortable and get started as a successful student.
In terms of the timeline for planning, I think one of the things that I've seen happen in the past is students think about the date of classes starting as when they need to arrive. And you've stressed this a little bit, but I think it's worth stressing that students will need to arrive maybe a couple of weeks ahead of time, depending on the university. Are you
Absolutely.
still seeing those kinds of patterns?
Yeah, it's whenever you're traveling to a new location, I think it's always better to arrive before you need to be there. So if classes start on, for example, they start Monday, January 9th here for the spring semester, you do not want to be arriving on Sunday, January 8th, or even on Monday, January 9th, and be going straight from the airport to Calculus 101. That's not a recipe for success for you. It's not a recipe for success for the university. We want you to come typically a few weeks before class starts. For our current group of students who started this spring, they arrived on, most of them arrived on January 2nd, and orientation started on the 3rd. We want you to arrive ahead of time so that you have some time to get acclimated. As I mentioned, it's rather cold in Indianapolis right now, so to get acclimated maybe to the weather, to find out where you're living, meet your classmates, meet your roommate, get settled, get moved in, make sure that you have food so that when you do go to Calculus 101 on Monday, you have your books, you have your notebook, you know what you're doing, and you can be successful when classes start.
Excellent. David, Yashika, is there anything else either of you would like to add at this point before we wrap up?
Just to thank you. I appreciate having the opportunity on a beautiful Saturday morning here in Indianapolis. And I know in India it's evening time, so we appreciate all of the students and possibly parents who have taken time to learn more about studying in the U.S.
Thank you, David.
Yeah,
Yashika, anything from your end?
Yeah, I just want to quickly mention when we were talking about visas, it's really important to stay on top of your visa appointments and make your appointments early and check in with your embassies. A lot of embassies in India do hold days where they specifically only handle student visas in an effort to get through a lot of student visas at the same time. They're a very busy time in May, June, and July. So just make sure you can follow your local embassy on Twitter or on Facebook. Those are great ways to get up-to-date information from them. And I want to thank David as well, and thank you guys.
Thank you, Yashika. All right, I think we're going to wrap it up there. If you have questions, again, David is available. We are available, and we'll be sending out more information, including this recording of this session, out to everyone who is registered for the webinar, and it will also be posted to our YouTube channel. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next time.